Well, I'm excited because now soccer is in our backyard. It still remains to be seen how much popularity this will spur within the U.S. We're talking just about 1994 and about how exciting it was to have it on our soil, very much an educational atmosphere in a way, because we had not had years of the MLS and we had not had years of grassroots soccer. But now we're 25 years in. MLS has not grown to the heights that a lot of people had hoped that it would. There are some markets where it's quite popular, but here in New York, where we cover it, the New York team won the championship last year. They're barely averaging 13, 15,000 fans. Their city hall parade was COVID related, kept small, but would not have drawn very much of a large crowd. So there is this dichotomy between world soccer, FIFA, Champions League, that sort of popularity, and what the true picture of what soccer is here, MLS, a little bit more cloudy.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be honest. The U.S. is a very diverse sports fan base. You got compete with the NFL, the NBA, MLB, and by the way, a lot of these leagues are also experiencing a little bit of fatigue as well. We're not seeing record number of folks going to the stadiums, perhaps with the exception of the NFL. And then you had the whole COVID thing as well. So it's not just soccer necessarily, but in your mind, why is it that Americans perhaps haven't embraced soccer as much as we thought they would?
That's the big question. And the question can really be told through the stars. When you look at the most famous players, they're playing overseas. They're playing in the Champions League. They're playing in the Premier League. When you think of our own homegrown talents, Christian Pulisic, who could be a household name here in the States, certainly if he is able to perform on the world stage, but he's playing overseas. He started his career in Germany. So these homegrown players, MLS just can't possibly compete with them when other teams are paying transfer fees of 20, $30 million, the salaries. MLS is somewhat capped in terms of how much they're able to pay their players. And when famous players do come, it's generally at the end of their careers. Looking at someone like David Beckham, there's this news of Messi trying to come over, possibly, hopefully, but it'll be at the end of his career. So what will you actually be able to see until they're able to get the top players, until they're able to keep their top players here? That's where the growth will be.
Okay, you got to help me out here. I got a crazy idea, if you don't mind. I mean, the folks that work here know I come up with all kinds of wild ones. The U.S. women's national team, of course, had the recent announcement to have the equal pay issue that has been resolved. Why not mix up these tournaments and the national team and have men and women play on the same team? You know, make it half-half and everybody gets paid, and just like any other professional sport. Wouldn't that be a huge twist to the game?
That would certainly be a huge twist, at least from the U.S. perspective. Now, this equal pay amendment that the U.S. women's team was able to codify, it actually pools the resources and the fees and the sponsorships of the tournaments that they both play in. So they're on equal pay. The problem becomes when you look at other nations, when you look at favorites like Brazil and England and France, and while they are trying to bring up the popularity, and there'll never be equality of the women's soccer leagues and those, they're too far gone down the line in terms of competitiveness and traditions of international play. It is a great idea, and it might be something that can be another type of tournament. I mean, listen, FIFA and the soccer leagues are always looking for money makers and how can they grow the pie. I mean, certainly playing the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, selling out for that.
But why not the MLS? Why can't the MLS do this? We can do it on our own here in the U.S.
I mean, that could be one way to grow that sort of popularity. I'd like to see it on a small scale. I mean, right now, soccer and MLS, they need to do something to grab the attention of the public. This deal that they just signed with Apple TV, on the surface, if you just think 10 years, 2.5 billion, I think this is going to be a horrible deal for them unless they are also able to have some sort of linear TV component. You can't possibly grow a sport just being on digital. Yes, and streaming, it may be the future, but for the casual fan that just wants to turn on their local station or just turn on ESPN and see a game that happens to be on, you are really going to be cutting the legs out of a lot of local fans in terms of regional sports networks that produce shows related to those games, that have those games. Major League Baseball is kind of doing this in a way itself by going to a lot of different platforms. If you look at that model, baseball's attendance and ratings have lessened to a certain degree. I think MLS is going to follow.
Mike, I'll end it on some good news. Is maybe they're not watching it on TV, but every weekend, millions of moms and dads watch their kids play soccer. It is immensely popular among the 5 to 6 year old demographic.
And I'm one of those parents on the sideline. My 5-year-old loves it, and I'm sure he'll love it for many years to come. So that is good news, at least from a grassroots level.
Right.